always hung out with the girls. Always hung out with the girls. Always hung out with the girls they accepted me.
Hi, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I am Ozma In The Dark, utilizing she/they pronouns for the purposes of brightening the world. Wholesome purposes today. I'm wearing like a gray shirt with something on it, and there are posters in the background. I am here with Perfict.
Howdy. I'm still using the he, him pronouns, and I am wearing the blue feathers.
Well, good, I drew those.
See, that good how that worked out.
And Christy's not feeling the best today, but we are still here with JunkShop Library. How are you doing?
I am well. They, them pronouns. Rainbow mock turtleneck in the world's messiest studio.
Yeah.
I love that shirt.
Thank you.
It's a great.
I mean, it is a great shirt. I have mostly stuff I got in. I was gonna say loot boxes. Loot boxes is a video game thing. Whatever, there were boxes that were shipped and they had a different shirt each month type thing. And secondhand. That's what most of my clothes are. Except for my nice coat. But today we're talking about intersectionality and in advocacy. Just because I think it's an important topic just to cover overall. And I guess let's just start with opening thoughts. JunkShop Library. Or just should I just say Junk Shop? Should I just shortened?
Yeah, that's 2 syllables rather than 7 or whatever it is. Yeah, that's fine.
So Junk Shop, what's your general views on intersectionality with in terms of advocacy, and what do you think about current status of that?
Well, the current status of it is that in most communities, it kind of tends to blow right now. There's a lot of people out there who look like me, talking on behalf of a lot of people who don't. And use your platform is one thing, but more voices from more corners of more parts of the world and the human experience, I think is always a better thing.
Perfect. Same questions.
Same questions. Well, I think that advocacy is terribly important, and it's really hard to be arguing for inclusion of your group or a group and being exclusive of another group. That gets into weird self-contradiction.
Yeah, and my overall opinion is similar to your guys's, and I know this is not I am super white, as you can tell. But like and I think one of the things that people oftentimes or some people don't think about is the amount of conditioning that's already gone through us. And I already feel like just in general I need to get more the show's started back up, and I'm just like, I've gotten to this point. I'm like, our audiences have been a bit white. But I mean, some of that goes in with regards to like the people I know and the circles I'm around, and I don't know who's comfortable being out and who's not comfortable being out. I probably should just out more to people, although that itself has emotional energy. So it's its own complicated thing, and even not including skin color, there's also disability. Where disabled people get left out a lot with stuff, which I try to make some effort with. I mean, I was just on Rigo Rants yesterday talking about disability advocacy. Although I didn't do this the social model of disability. That is to some degree another story, but like what
Well,
what
I was going to be saying there's a huge assumption that usually runs that you can't be more than one thing. You can't be disabled and have any gender identity issues or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how people box others in. You have people talking about, I think the way Dave Chappelle, for instance, when he talked about trans people, the way he said it kind of made it seem like there are no black trans people. And that's definitely not the case. I know we've had at least one on this show before. And now that I have finances, I might ask them if they're willing to help find me or help out. That's another story. That's an entirely different story. But like, my brain went business there for a second. But yeah, it's there are definitely LGBTQ disabled people who are LGBTQ, black people who are LGBTQ, black people who are disabled and LGBTQ, people of color who are disabled and LGBT. Like, it's not a simple box. And I guess with me, my concern is that people, yeah, the exclusion is just like a frustrating thing where it's more problems important for this.
Yeah, there is often a perception, or at least a stated perception, that if you are a member of a small enough minority, just nobody cares. You should just deal with it, and that attitude grows exponential the smaller a portion of the Venn diagram you occupy. And when you add in things like disabilities, visible or otherwise, those circles get real small real fast, as does the exclusion.
Yeah, and this and from my memory, why is this reminds me of something about black community feminism, because there are things that white women would put in a class above um, black people in certain circumstances, and black women could never ignore like the fact that they're in both categories. They're black and a woman, so they couldn't. There's no hiding
There's no way
any
to.
of that behind privilege.
There's no picking a lane on that. On those things is the thing. That's you can't tell them pick a lane. You're either black or you're a woman. That isn't a sensible attitude to have towards that.
Well, no, that gets into the patriarchy, because the patriarchal values has women as breeder, and specifically to try to get white women, which is why black women are often masculinized by those sorts of values to try to dehumanize them and not consider black women women. But that's also another thing. I'm also concerned when it comes to intersectionality that if we don't come together, we won't get much done, or it's harder to get stuff done. And I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that.
No, I agree. It's impossible to go anywhere if you're all pulling in different directions at different speeds at the same time. It's like that, those parachute umbrella games that we used to. I mean, I'm a little older than you, so I don't know if you did that, but
no,
I
remember the parachute game. I can't remember it exactly, but I remember waving a parachute like that.
Yeah, and everybody would stand around the periphery of it and raise it up and snap it up and bring it back down, and one person runs through underneath, and and it was a whole cooperative thing.
Yeah.
As sure as one person starts going down when the other ones are going up, the whole thing just collapses. And if you've got 30 kids all doing the same things in different directions and with different rhythms at different speeds, somebody's going to get tangled up in that parachute and die.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes, and I think also a lot of this stuff, a lot of times, like stuff that's against racism generally helps most people out, if not everybody. Stuff that's against, I definitely know accessibility helps everyone out for so many reasons. And
we get to live in a better society.
Well, not just because you get to live in a better society. You have a lot of it is based around the ideal of the human and what it means to be an ideal human. And if you just take away that conceptual part, a lot of, not to say that that's easy to do, by the way, but like a lot of that stuff falls apart. The aspects of ableism and stuff, like why does it matter, how you look, why is it important the way in which you look. Like, I mean, you can maybe care about things, aesthetics things from an artistic creative point of view, but like that's different from saying no, this is how you should look. And historically, a lot of times when it comes to the people who have been successful in colonizing large parts of the world, usually it's white people who are white men are considered the ideal, and have been far too much throughout society. I guess. Um, I guess how can people be better at being intersectional? Because like there are good ways and bad ways to do stuff.
Well, I would say
Okay,
just listen to more people.
that was I was just about to say. It takes more than even active listening. You have to actually be seeking to hear other people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody of falling into, my own tiny little leftist echo chamber. But if there's more people out there than folks who look just like oneself and think just like oneself and live just like oneself. And if you don't know what other people are going through, how do you know what needs to be fixed other than just what? I mean, there is a level of, yes, put your own oxygen mask on first, but that doesn't mean ignore the fact that there's other people on the plane.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think some of that is exacerbated by the various ways in which society has been segregated. I know Daily Show did it's like the after the Daily Show podcast, they talked about the how roads and buses and all that stuff were worked out in such a way to make it harder for black people to get out of certain neighborhoods and into the whiter neighborhoods. And because of that, there are certain areas where you're not going to see black people as much. It's just because, like, buses only go there till 6 p.m. Black people are oftentimes poorer and didn't have transportation as easy transportation, so they make it so you can only really get there easily by car. And that also causes injury. I know once I ran across a highway to try to get to a bus stop. This is what this is when I was working at 3M, and 3M would was definitely in a wider part of a more privileged part of Maplewood, Minnesota. But like, there's like a company thing, and I couldn't figure out how to get back to the bus stop, and the buses only ran till like 8 or something, and it's like. It's one of those things where there are all these things that can put pressure on people to get them injured, and the society was designed largely for black people to end up in this circumstance. I realize I'm somewhat atypical since I've been through a lot of two poor areas, and most of the time when I worked, my coworkers were people of color or black, or a large percentage of them. So my experience is not necessarily the most typical, and this is like, I'm also aware I'm privileged because I'm able to get help from my parents. But like, in terms of segregation, I lost my train of thought with a personal story. In terms of segregation, also similar thing with, you don't see the number of disabled people there are out there. Because when society's not accessible, people are disincentivized to go out. If it's hard to get someplace, you're less motivated to try to go through the extra effort to get there, if you can even get, if that's even a realistic possibility. So people don't see the people using canes or using wheelchairs so much, and it further incentivizes people to just only know about black people from movies, only know about disabled people from movies or TV shows. And those things are not accurate. Only know LGBTQ people, movies or TV shows.
Those aren't accurate?
I believe that.
And here I was thinking Hollywood always told me the truth, like the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have thunk it? Yeah, no, it's. But the thing is, like, even if something is untrue, I feel like people will look at it and just be like, there's a grain of truth there somewhere, even if it's a complete lie.
Yeah.
But kicking back to, if you actually take the moment and say, if you are, working on something or actively doing something towards advocacy, and you say, okay, who are we not including?
Yeah.
Actually, I think the act of saying it out loud to people, and there's no shortage of people who will actually say, oh, by the way, yeah, you're not including me.
Yeah, I mean, that.
They want to be heard.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is definitely ideal, and obviously just saying that isn't enough. You also have to do it. But like, yeah, saying it is the first step oftentimes towards doing it. It's just some people are jerks and just want to say it so they can just be like, oh, I put effort into and it's not always as simple, and people have lives as well.
There is a feeling that you go, how much of the minutia do we have to go into? How many of these teeny groups do we have to be working with in order to make ourselves count? But the fact of the matter is that it's the strength in numbers that, by including all the small groups and the people who are connected and identify with helping those small groups, that's how you collect these fractions of a percent of the population add up to enough of a portion of the population. And each of those fractions of a percent of the population also have more people who are cis white men who care about them, and you're drawing them into your advocacy as well. So I'm saying that intersectionality isn't just the right thing to do, it's a smart strategy.
I've not thought of it from that perspective, but yes. No, I agree.
Yeah, and although to get that done, you have to also break down the barrier of who matters. So there are plenty of LGBTQ groups who are run by racist people or ableist people, like, who don't care about accessibility or don't care about the problems of people outside of their general sphere of influence. In fact, I mean, trans people have been from a lot of gay rights stuff. I mean, I do have part of that speech. I know I forgot her their name. I can't remember the person.
Yeah, well,
advocates just complaining about it because of the segregation the unnecessary segregation there, or at the very least unnecessary seeming lack of caring for other people's genuine problem.
There's entirely too many people out there who did not read Horton Hears a Who as a child, and it shows. A person's a
Well,
person,
that Beazle
no
nut.
matter how small.
Yeah. But it oftentimes ends up, because I mean there are prominent activists for the Black Lives Matter movement who, you know, if a black effectively told black disabled people, "Oh, we'll fight for you later," the disabled part. It's like, you can't really tell people who are dying, or who have friends who are dying or are oppressed in a variety of ways. Oh, we'll try to make an effort to help you out tomorrow. Like it's not very good marketing.
No.
Okay.
And
Emily is, of course, raising a number of fair points, but one of them I wasn't trying to advocate that you only want to be getting the caretakers or allies and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah,
was,
no, I don't think she I think she was making.
I know, but it does highlight the. I don't think she was saying it does highlight the possibility that I might be misunderstood. However, that I was saying that was the important thing. No. I think the important thing is to get the people, and I'm pointing out that also brings in the people who care about them, who are attracted to the issue because of it makes it personal for them. There's a lot of people who don't see beyond their doorstep.
Well, yeah,
and so it's somebody who they care about is disadvantaged in society because society's not accepting them, and they suddenly see that as being an issue, and they're now in where before they were kind of lackadaisical and didn't care, and they and now they're in, and you get more people who are in if you include more people in your advocacy.
Well, yes. I obviously, I'm fine with being corrected if I'm wrong, but I get there are certain groups who obviously, Autism Speaks is a good example, where it's just about, they just talk with parents of autistic people and don't actually talk with autistic. And I can see how that, for instance, is generally a bad thing. And also, I think there was a study, one of those Perfict studies that was largely just talking to parents of trans kids. I think that was the rapid onset gender dysphoria study, was just talking with the parents of trans kids. And you have to, you can include caretakers and allies, but you can't, it feels disingenuous when there are people out there who when other people. Oh, it wasn't to you, Perfict, just that those who are living experiences need added social currency, not just advising professionals. She's talked about that before. I lost my train of thought. So you need to have, like, not just that can't be the only source, obviously, for you're fighting for. You need to have, like, actual people to some degree. It starts to get really weird if you only have people If you only have a bunch of white professors on Black history helping you out, it starts to get really weird. There are no Black people, and similar thing with disability stuff, and similar thing with LGBT.
It's the same thing with anything. It's just if you come up with a dumb example, it just sounds completely bananas. The one that popped into my head was, would you do a study or a documentary or something only talking to dietitians about the diabetic experience?
I wouldn't.
Would, and they would have a certain degree of professional insight and knowledge, but most of them probably aren't going to have a lot of experience of 3 a.m. blood sugar crashes. You got to talk to the people who are living the life.
Well, yeah, and some of that also relates to biases. So like look, there's a lot of stuff I like about doctor stuff, and there's a lot of accuracy and there's a lot of scientific stuff. However, there is one slight problem with the medical community. It just relates to, because it started I mean, obviously the concept of medicine started a long time ago. I don't even know how many, more than 1,000 years ago the concept of medicine started, but like probably more like 3,000 years ago at least for written documentation. Anyways, that's beside the point. The point I was trying to get at was that there's a concept of ideal what it means to be an ideal human. People, a lot of medical stuff is about how to fix people to make them how they should be, and it's changing. It is moving away from that, more so in the psychological studies is more so moving away from that because they have a better psychological understanding of why there are certain problems with that reason. But like you have stuff like the medical community, it's really important. It's viewed as really important for you to be able to walk, according to the medical community. More important than it actually is, because you need to have that concept that humans should walk for you to put a value. And obviously everyone can have whatever value they want to it, and people are different and they can want what they want. It's just that you don't have to want to walk. You don't have to want. You've been deaf your whole life and you know ASL really well. It would not surprise me if most people in circumstances like that don't want to learn to hear for the purposes of being able to have to learn another language. So they're more normal.
Yeah, more normalized would be, but
I mean,
just using language to try and draw a distinction that it's not a judgment on it's the society's normalization of them.
well, yeah, but I mean, normalization still requires there to be a concept of what counts as normal.
Well, that's kind of mathematical. That's what I was saying, was that it's
I'm not seeing the math, but maybe that's just me.
Well, I kind of both agree and disagree on that one. Because in order for normal to be mathematically based, it would need to be, as a dominant percentage of the population. But there's hardly only one or two examples throughout history of the most power being wielded by a statistically less dominant number of people. There's more women than there are men, for example. But
Yeah,
look at look at your state house.
Don't think we have to go rooting around very far to find several, examples of
One or two.
Yeah, there's more than a few of those. So yeah, that's not too unusual. I wasn't suggesting that they did about that. I didn't think.
Oh no, I didn't.
I was commenting on
down the trail in my own head and dragged you all along with me. Sorry, I do that.
Well, do we all do that? Isn't that the normal for this show?
Oh, the body mass index? Is that what you're talking about, Emily? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, ableist, racist, and patriarchal all at once. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, there's a whole separate thing about I have seen about that. But more importantly, I'm not a very social person. Is generally my default is not very social, and a part of like, on the one hand, I'm okay at taking advice and reaching out to people. On the other hand, I'm bad at finding new people. To reach out to, which is important for the purposes of intersectionality, and I don't know how much is just overly worried, or if I feel like if I feel like I'm trying to contact them the wrong way, or yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that. Maybe that's just me overthinking this. This has now become it's been this all along. It's just how to help me become more intersectional. Three
it's not
two
just
white
you.
people and a bird. Trying to be more intersectional. But yeah, if especially with all the isolation with COVID and stuff, I don't know if that makes reaching out to people online easier or harder.
Well, more socializing takes place online. That's definitely true. I mean, it's moved up the use of online utilities for socializing.
Yeah, but I mean,
I'm not sure if it's made. Has it made any of those things, any barriers, less important? I don't really think so. But I suppose that maybe some. I don't know.
I don't know either. I think I default towards Maybe it's just because I default towards less social, and I'm just like, but I feel like I should be try to be everywhere, all at the same time, and um, I guess thinking about it, maybe I shouldn't over worry about the details and just contact people. Contact more diverse people. Just try to do a better job.
Oh, we all should. It's just it's one of those things where it's kind of easy to sit here on a Sunday night and say perhaps I should talk to more different people. But then, you know, you get up the next morning and you're like, well, how about, am I supposed to do that?
Well,
yes, I have,
mean,
you know, half the population of the planet at my Twitter fingertips, but where?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
In like, how do you like you were saying? How do you just up and reach out to people?
Like,
it was weird.
I mean, I'll probably try to get Kurt Rance back in the show. Although his schedule has been really busy, so it's like I'm not sure I could, even if I want to. I'm not sure if Clarabelle Caitlin is doing external content. If they are, I will definitely fight for getting her on the show. It's very much it's very much a lot of the people of color I'm aware of are like either too big of a channel to likely care, or have been bullied out of feeling like it's safe to just go on to stuff. And I mean, obviously I want to make a safer place if I can. Ideally I want to make um but what I guess what marginalized groups do either of you think are probably the least paid attention?
Atheists.
I wait, is that a joke or?
No. I don't think that they get. I don't think they've got a huge raft of problems, but they got problems.
I mean, most of the people I've heard online who are deaf or have been aware of who are definitely explicitly atheists, admittedly have been this old white boomer white dude or Gen Xers. Like a lot of the bigger communities. But like, I mean, to be fair, that does vary from country to country and area to area, how much it matters whether or not you're an atheist. But I think, as a whole, the feels like it's naturally progressing or moving away from forcing theism upon others. I I suppose Emily brings up a good point. Many atheists are not publicly out as non-religious. That is true. That is a fair point that I don't think about. Um, and also like I'm also have slowly become more and more aware of atheist communities, specifically ones that later I found out were toxic, but which is a whole nother story. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to hold off on this one. I have some thoughts, but some of them are at odds with each other, and it would be very easy for me to shoot off my mouth in a way that could be misinterpreted at a future date, and I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Well, I still will ask what community what marginalized community do you feel like is not talked about enough?
Oh, trans women of color.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
The murder statistics are absolutely horrendous among nothing else, and those crimes are never solved. Mysterious.
Yeah, and also like most of the trans women who are killed are trans women. And like I might live, like there's a possibility of living in fear of getting the shit kicked out of me for being trans, but I'm not going to I'm not super like and I think that yeah, I mean, once again, in terms of stuff I pay attention to, it's a lot easier for me to agree about that. And this is not, just to be clear, this is not there's no need to put a hierarchy on people who talked about that's part of the whole point of intersectionality, that y'all work together. And honestly, atheists, religious people, trans people, people of color, trans people of color, disabled people of color, trans disabled people of color, like all the everyone needs to get together, or not everyone, but you know what I mean, like that's the whole point of intersectionality. I still, because I asked JunkShop about their thoughts on yours, I suppose I'll ask your thought on JunkShop's thought processes.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Wait, what was the question? No, I feel like there was a question before. Oh no. Apparently it's one of those days. Uh yeah, I guess maybe I was just extra divisive with uh this I shot my mouth off. I guess and Junk Shop made a
Okay.
point not to shoot their mouth off, and then effectively I don't know what the question would have been. Clearly I don't want you to shoot your mouth off in some random reactionary way. Um uh, uh so I will just mention I'm biased, so I'm gonna say disabled people, especially disabled people of color, but like I'm incredibly biased, so that that's its own other story, but that's part of the reason why I try to talk about that a lot. Um, I guess what sort of thing, and either of you can answer this. What sort of thing would either of you consider something that, if addressed, to make so like I think we can all agree that if the world was more accessible, that would be helpful for people, whether non-disabled or disabled people, um, would help them out. I mean, making buses more accessible was helpful for people who had strollers or whatnot, or um, uh, you know, making stages more accessible is helpful for pushing stuff up there, and accessible is always helpful if you happen to hurt yourself in such a way that it's difficult to get up and down places and get around. So but we do all agree on that, right? Or if not,
Oh, yes. Yes, I totally agree on that.
yeah, but like and that might not be obvious to everyone, but like what similarly, what sort of thing, how would how would stopping racism or sexism or whatever other stuff that negatively impacts marginalized groups, what ways would that be helpful for everyone?
It would be helpful for everyone, everywhere, all the time. Rising tide lifts all boats and all that crap. The only problem is it can't be done. You can't end racism and sexism. We're tribal primates. We're always going to other people. The star-bellied sneetches had sneetches with stars. The plain-bellied sneetches has none upon theirs. I mean, we're always going to find ways to differentiate my group from their group, even if it boils down to something as simple as it is their group. and I don't like that person. Humans are not nice critters.
Yeah, but I mean, that feels so defeatist, though.
Well, we're likely not going to grow wings either, but that would solve the public transportation crisis in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, but like we have more
Kind of one of
control
those
over
things
how we
what it is.
treat people and how societies are set up. We have more control over that than whether or not we grow wings. Do we not? Or
At an individual
Well, I think
level, yes. At a species level, I don't know.
perfect, he said.
yeah, othering is going to happen. I have to agree there that othering is going to be a thing that goes on and happens, and it'll just, you can switch its context, but it's going to happen. But there are ways of limiting and discouraging and not rewarding it. Yeah. And the benefits of including people, I'm not going to say they're self-evident, but they're manifest. You get more people involved is always going to be giving you more power and more pressure in society.
Yes, although on a superficial level, that because people are put into most people are in bad situations. And by the way, Perfect put it in a way my brain worked with more. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, I would probably like, and obviously I'd prefer that happen more on an individual level than a society. Ideally, like being like that person is a jerk as opposed to that person is a jerk. Therefore, all people happen to share X trait with them. But like, going to say something. What was I gonna say? I am losing my train of thought a lot. Today. Maybe I didn't get enough. I thought I had gotten enough.
Well, people do a lot of sorting and in group and out grouping. And I mean, if you just think of how if you're reading a story and somebody in the story encounters somebody who is, well, they're in a foreign land and they encounter somebody and that person is from the next town over from where they grew up. You know that you've just been told in a shorthand they're considering them as an in group. They have a commonality of background and so on, and that's just going to be accepted. That's, people do in grouping and out grouping sort of sorting all the time. The thing is that you want to keep that from being
institutionalized.
Yes, that's the word. That's it exactly. That from having that be institutionalized and then enshrined and about things that are indelible. Okay, which I suppose where you're born is kind of indelible, but you know.
Well, yeah, but you shouldn't be as some sort of, well, I mean, that gets in. And by the way, people are not going to get rid of hierarchies completely either, but like the hierarchies for the purpose of living and thriving are not things I'm a fan of. But like, yeah, like you don't want it to be like, oh, you were born in that city. Well, we don't want people from that city in this job. You know? Like, you can still yes. So I guess you did put it right, Junk Shop. Human beings are really good at being awful. I know that's summarizing somewhat, but like
an evolutionary talent for it. It's
Yes.
yeah, because I mean, we have a talent for being uh caring about people, so long as we see them as humans, which is part of the whole point of, you know, people need to be seen as people first. And I that sounds really simple, and I know Jung Shop, you brought that up with the Dr. Seuss. I think was Dr. Yeah.
oh, yeah.
And yeah, people need to be seen as people first, because then empathy kicks in, and it's your people are more likely to cry if they're seeing someone cry. People are more likely to yawn if they hear someone yawn. There's this sort of instinctive baseline connection that human beings have towards what's going on with other individuals they view as being in their species. Part of the reason why dehumanization is one of the ways in which fascist reasoning happens, and how people can accept awful stuff, but like, which
it's mirror neurons, and it's one of those things that you've got mirror neurons, and that you mirror things in your mind. And when you see someone with they injure their arm, that there's a model in your brain that goes off. They can map it, and you mirror that pain in your arm in your head. And
I forgot about that.
And that people do that. And some people, when they see a horse hurt its leg, will mirror it to their arm, and they see they're modeling in their mind their arm hurting when they see it. But some people don't go beyond, for instance, seeing a gorilla. And some people have trouble with a gorilla, and some people, which is part of why some people actually have trouble with people with disabilities. They have a hard time understanding a person in a wheelchair, as they don't mirror neuron them the same way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how much of that is? I mean, the thing about a lot of brain chemistry stuff is how much is society, and how much is outside factor, and how much is internal factor.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's what's going on in their head, which is a huge barrier that I think that the disabled do face, which is not there for other people, by and large. I'm not sure how much that happens with people of color. I don't think that I don't know. Maybe I have no data on whether or not that forms a barrier to mirror neuroning at some point for humans.
Well, once again, I don't know enough about this study either, but a lot of stuff, when it comes to brain stuff, we understand only so much in terms of all the factors which can affect the. It's very hard with the brain to have a study which is where you can manage to study just one thing that has had no previous or post influence on it. And I don't like how would you even study it? Because it's like, oh, it mirror neurons before and after changing your mind and your mentality towards an entire situation. Like I don't think you could study that, because you would have no way of verifying that someone's mind has changed. So if someone doesn't see someone else as human because they just see them as uh almost like a broken marionette, which is, I get the impression that's how disabled people are viewed by far too much of society. Just and it's, how are people supposed to determine? It's like, what, the mirror neurons don't fire now, but if you change their mind, they do fire. Like, you would have no way of verifying if that's the case, or if there are other factors involved, and that would be very hard to um study, because there's tons of brain stuff that varies amongst a lot of different factors. Brain stuff's complicated.
I would
Yeah,
gladly
that's fair.
read the study, but I have absolutely no earthly idea about any of this. I know absolutely bleep all about brain chemistry.
Only since I'm not very comfortable with the person first, which is people with disabilities, language or model. For why should be me to remind others of my humanity. All people are. As the I mean, I get that. I mean, when it comes to that, that gets into whole language in terms of reclaiming language use and changing how language is used, which is its own complicated thing. Language is complicated. Societies are complicated. Everything's complicated, but like, I don't know. You can try to make it better.
Well, that's the goal, isn't it? Regardless what the it is in that sentence, we can try to make it better, and we should.
Yeah, I mean, that is the oftentimes well, okay, we are past the hour mark. I can veer off a tiny bit. I think that's the rules. Also, like, comment, and subscribe. Share around if you enjoyed our content. But like, that's kind of the thing that frustrates me, because a lot of criticism of much anything changing, like, oh, you just have a utopian view thing. It's never been done before. Why should we expect that to be a good thing? Or, and it's like, no, it's never been done before, but like to try. And especially if you're in a marginalized group, oftentimes the level of threat determines how motivated you are to try. If your life depends on it. I mean, with the likely overturning of Roe v. Wade,
Yeah.
people's and the consequences that would have, since it would go against privacy. Plain women obviously would not be able to get abortions, but also there'd be a lot of the concepts on why Roe v. Wade is legal and is correct are also the reasons why you don't have anti-sodomy laws. And
Yeah.
they can very easily go uh, after that, and I lost my train of thought again. I'm sorry, everyone. Today's been a bad brain space day. Apparently, I've been having.
Well, I can take over the tirade.
Sure, go
I mean,
ahead.
the Roe v. Wade thing, that is a decision. You don't even have to be an abortion rights advocate. That's they're coming for everybody, any group, every group. That's this is the starter whistle. They are going to be coming for you, and it's because it applies so broadly. What they're ruling on is saying that unless they are saying that Roe v. Wade isn't even wrong, that it was ruled that they don't have to address the reasons and the laws and the precedent. None of that do they have to address. They're saying that no sane person could understand the laws of the land to be covering anything like that. The laws of the land, that bodily autonomy plays no role, is basically they're saying.
Yeah, they're saying. Yeah, they're saying a lot of really bad stuff with that. So much bad stuff, and I mean, I guess. Wait, no, I can rush this right back to intersectionality. This is an example of intersectionality because this is something that was. This was a law that was put in place to protect women's rights, and the way it's stripped, that affects that will likely affect so many different people's lives. LGBT, just everyone in the LGBTQIA plus community lives are going to be affected, potentially affected by this law. I mean, obviously it's state by state to some degree for now, but like who knows what the Supreme Court will do after this, because of like Perfict said, the all the other problems. Another example is ADA. A friend of mine, long-term friend of mine, was able to get extended leave at her job through due to an illness of some sort, due to the ADA, due to utilizing legal stuff with the ADA. And now there's the privilege involved to doing any legal stuff. Mostly middle class people have that privilege. I know I'm lucky to have the privilege of middle class parents. Otherwise, I would not have had a lawyer be contacted when I was hit by a automobile as a pedestrian. So, and hospital bills are expensive. And yeah, it's just so often these things are absolutely connected. And for instance, if they got rid of the right to fire for any reason, that might well, actually that probably wouldn't directly affect things, but that would have a chance of helping people to decrease the chance of criminalization, or decrease the chance of negative stuff happening. Like if you can't be fired for being gay, like if you come out or if you're outed or whatnot for being gay or trans or whatnot at a job, and it's a right to fire state, and there's no legal protections, which there might not be soon. It's bad.
So,
The Roe v.
junk
Wade
shop,
thing is bad.
do
Not
you
really a
have
hot take.
a release valve on this? Roe v. Wade. I'm wondering if Junk Shop needs a release valve on this. I've already said something.
I mean, I just agree with everything that has been said. I don't have particular nuanced opinions on it. It's just yet another example of wealthy, old, cis, white men deciding that their way is the best way and deciding to legislate accordingly.
Well, I also there are laws that are already on the books.
And it's going to
you need to consider have ramifications. Okay.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I have already got laws that say that a woman's rights to bodily autonomy are subject to their being pregnant, and therefore the zygote's rights to continued survival, we'll just go with that as a description of it. I'm not, it's messy, but please don't pick on me for what the particulars. That if a woman wants to travel from my state to another state where they don't get those protections, where that state's more liberal, if you want to take your children to a volcano, I'm allowed to step in and say, no, you can't do that. So if you want to take that zygote to a state where it's not protected in the same way, no, you can't do that. You can't take that zygote. You're welcome to go. You can go to the volcano, but you can't take the zygote with you. And neither can you go. So therefore,
You can't remove
leave.
it from you.
And therefore, women can't leave my state unless they can come to me and prove to me that they're not pregnant. Now, not only that, we have the laws that say that when you are flying over a state, you're subject to the laws of that state. Like you can't order drinks when you're flying over Iowa. So when you're flying over my state, you can't leave my state unless you can prove you're not pregnant. So I can stop you from getting off the plane at its destination and make you either prove that you're not pregnant or take you back to my state.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah. I mean, like, obviously there's some of those laws that just can't be realistically enforced in a modern era.
Well, no, these are all laws that would be in effect, but these are not laws that are meant to be governing the pregnancy in this way. They've opened up this avenue to these laws would apply, and it's no problem to apply them.
Well,
but they
yeah,
just
I mean,
opened that up because of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's
would be.
Yes.
They haven't yet.
Yeah, I know. They have opened up those laws. It's just one of those things where the power of laws are twofold. There's the legal aspect of it, but also there's how much it's enforced. Like jaywalking is an example of this, or not to say that laws, even if they're not enforced, they should still be taken off the books if they're not enforced. If they're not something that anyone wants to enforce or anyone agrees with, they need to be taken off the books. And similar thing, state by state. It depends on the state, but like Minnesota is a good example of a state where technically the why can't I think of the law? The awful law. The law of I hate The Witcher. The Witcher has messed with my brain. I keep wanting to call it the law of surprise. Not the law of surprise. Very much not the law of surprise. It's the law where if someone finds out you're trans, they can get a lighter sentence for murdering you. That law is not likely to be enforced in Minnesota due to the culture. It still should be off the books. It's not, but it should be off the books. And it's a problem that it's not off the books. But like other states that have that law have a increased chance of it be enforced or whatnot. And some of that also relates to if they tried to enforce it, there would be a state civil courts civil rights thing because Minnesota in like 1990 gender was considered in the being trans was technically legally covered under the same stuff that anti-discrimination with relation to if you're gay or whatnot. There was one trans was put in there with that in Minnesota. So and that's part of how they finally got bottom surgery to be forced to be covered by insurance. It was with relation to that law. So I think in Minnesota it would be shot down if someone tried to again, it would go up to the state supreme, which probably
sometimes you find that the laws are intertwined with other laws and it causes problems, though. I mean, so the repealing laws is not always practical.
Yeah, although that law, the law of specifically letting you have lighter sentence if you are surprised that the person is trans.
Yeah. That's kind of sick. Yes, I will grant you, but
yes, some laws are harder to take down. Some laws. I know there was one that someone was mentioning that a law that they were trying to, because of all the Republican Party has been sending all this anti-trans stuff. There's an anti-trans law in Minnesota, and I'm like, yeah, that goes against the state constitution. Even if they were able to get this passed, it's going to be shot down by the state Supreme Court here. And once again, that's a state privilege thing.
Well, there's also a huge raft of that ties into there's a lot of laws that were passed in states because people wanted to pass them, and people went, "Oh, who cares?" Because the federal law would not, with Roe v. Wade, supersedes it, and therefore it didn't matter that they passed these draconian laws about.
Yeah.
And then if you go back on Roe v. Wade, now we these things become a problem. But that's I view that as a secondary issue. There are actual laws on the books in effect that we want to be enforced that are for controlling people from abusing children and participating in white slavery, and they suddenly will apply. And you go, that's crazy.
We live in an interesting time, and by interesting I mean somewhat horrific, but we are reaching towards the end of the show. JunkShop, where can people find you? And is there anything you're working on that you want to promote?
There is not anything going on at the moment. I've been running a little low in the spoons department lately, and everything's just kind of atrophied on the internet except for Twitter. JunkShop Library on Twitter. I shoot off my mouth a lot.
Yeah, and I have a link to your Twitter and your channel. If anyone wants to find you. Anything previous that you want to promote? just for the heck of it?
Well, I do. I'm trying to keep the Chronic Atheist podcast running, which is, it floats around some of the various podcast sites, and it's just me rambling and discussing chronic illness conditions, whether it's mental, psychological, physical, what have you. I've got a couple. I rant.
Yeah. Similarly, Perfict, where can people find you?
Well, at the discords that you list in the doobly-doo, the rumpus room and this one.
I think I may have. Wait, I don't know how much I've fixed with the Discord thing. Hopefully I have a rumpus room. I feel like I might have rumpus room link. I better have it. I'll check later. I only have certain spoons. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
And there's this. This is my biggest social media outlet where this is what I do.
Yeah. You can find me on well, the place you're most likely to find me is on Twitch, and here are like the most places for you to find me. Twitch, and I suppose my channel. I guess you can find me on my channel. This channel is me, Christy, and Perfict's channel. But yeah, so you can find me here. You can find me Ozma In The Dark on YouTube. You can find me Ozma In The Dark on Twitch. Find me Ozma In The Dark. I might just change Talking to Nothing to Ozma In The Dark. I know I have that technically saved on my Twitter. You can find me on Mastodon, Instagram, and the other site. What's the site that was originally not originally the clip site, but like TikTok? That's what I was trying to think of. Every once in a while I'll clip things, but largely it's from Twitch or YouTube, where I will clip things for TikTok or YouTube, and Instagram it's just me doing political ranting occasionally. I think that's everything. Wait, yeah. I didn't mention when I can be found, but I apparently am too tired for that. It's been a long couple of days. Or at least it feels that way to me. But that being said, your voice matters, your life matter, and your life matters, and you matter. Bye everybody.
Peace.